Welcome, everyone, to another edition of What Drives You. I am one of your co hosts, Stan Windhorn, and with me, as always, is my good buddy and co host, Carl Bauer. Carl, hello, welcome.
Hello, Happy New Year, Mr. Stan. I'm excited for your guest today because he's a fellow creator, I understand, and
Yes.
perhaps writer. So not to tip us
Yeah,
off too
so
much.
Yeah,
let's talk a little
it's
bit about our guest. First of all, we want to welcome to What Drives You, Kevin Rishell. Kevin, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us on What Drives You.
thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
All right. Well, Carl, I got to tell you, I I don't know Kevin well, but we run into each other from time to time out at some of the adult establishments where there is beverages being served, and we've kind of gotten to know each other through there. And I got to tell you something about this man. I don't know that if I've ever seen him out and about where he's not surrounded by, three, four really beautiful ladies. So I called him the honorary mayor of Lakewood, but he corrected me yesterday. What are you? You're the social mayor of Lakeway?
I've been called that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kevin
well,
knows a
that's
lot
just
of people and is well respected and liked in the area for sure.
well, I love connecting people. That's one of my passions, and so building community is a good thing.
And if it happens to be with a lot of lovely ladies, then that's just the bonus.
Well, yes, it is. It is. I love the feminine energy, and I respect women, and so naturally they're attracted to that. Um, I have four daughters, and so I grew up being an estrogen blessed man, herding cats, and so I uh, I love women. I love their
Yeah.
energy. I think they're the stronger sex in a lot of ways. They create life. They can handle more pain than we can most of the
No
time,
question.
and they're more emotionally intelligent than most men. And so,
Yeah.
I love the good a good conversation.
Yeah, well, we all have that in common. I raised two daughters, and Carl raised two daughters too. So we've all been fathers of young ladies. That's cool.
That's great. How many does Carl have? Carl, how many do you have? Two. Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm twice
but
the man you both are.
yes,
I
that's
think that's it.
that.
Me and Carl together equal you.
Oh, well, there
Yeah.
you go.
Or you're four times as crazy. I don't know. Two times as crazy. Who
Two
knows?
times. Yeah,
Well, it's
two
interesting
times.
that you say that, Kevin, because what's left in my family, I have a mother-in-law and my mother. We're still blessed to have them around, my wife and two daughters. So I am definitely immersed in that world of ladies, and it's very fun because I have to be a little bit delicate sometimes, as you two probably remember or know, because sometimes when I get in these conversations where we can bust our chops a little bit, if I do that to my lady friends and family, sometimes I get in trouble. But excited to hear your story and journey. And this, again, this is something that's really rare for us to be in a similar or same town almost. So thanks for joining us today on What Drives You.
Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah.
I enjoyed meeting Stan, and um, he happened to be with one of my lady friends that I met 6 or 8 months ago, I guess. Very beautiful young lady, and so he has my admiration as well.
Yeah, yeah, she was really terrific. But enough about that. Let's talk about your career. Kevin, you and I had a chance to talk a little bit yesterday, and I kind of got caught up on your background and how you ended up uh, as an author of several books, most recently some children's books. Why don't you just kind of give us a rundown on how you ended up becoming an author as well as a businessman? Oh, by the way, Carl, another thing that we have in common with Kevin is a sales and marketing guy, which I really didn't know until yesterday either. But that's where Carl and I originally met and what we do uh, with our real jobs.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's a salesman in one way, shape, or form. Some people don't like to acknowledge that, but a parent sells children on their ideas every day. So the better you can become at communicating and your people skills, um, the better your relationships will be in your life. And that's what life's about, is relationships, mostly. But I got started, I grew up on the East Coast, went to school in Virginia, got a marketing degree, minored in English and economics. I come from a family of writers. My sister is a phenomenal poet and playwright, and my dad wrote 5 books in his golden years. One of them was called With a Black Platoon in Combat. He was in the first wave of soldiers that went over to Korea after when the conflict broke out in 1950.
Oh,
And
wow.
no equipment, you know, the clothing wasn't adequate, and he slugged his way up, leading a black platoon. And at that time, they were white officers that were leading black platoons. When I read his manuscript, I didn't see that anywhere. These were just his men. That title came from the publishers who wanted to kind of find some way in, I guess, to get the attention of the public. But it's a great story. He was a warrior. Multiple Purple Hearts, Bronze Star, Silver Star. He uh,
Wow.
he retired a lieutenant colonel, worked at the Pentagon. So my early years were growing up around Washington, D.C. I had a brother and 2 sisters. Um, and so I went, got my degree, got married, started raising a family in Virginia, and then got called west. Go west, young man. So I stopped off in Arizona for 3 years. I lived in Scottsdale, Phoenix area, and then got hired as a um, to help put together a project with a gentleman that has been my friend now for 35 years, and I'm still working with him. His name is Richard Stewart, and he's quite an entrepreneur. And I just helped him finish his first book. It's a biography, autobiography, I guess, about his life, and it's called "It's Worth a Billion." And we'll have the next updated version of that out probably within a week, and it'll be on all the major platforms. But it has some great education in it. His life is just full of amazing stories you wouldn't believe. And so, but that's recently. I started writing stories and I guess lyrics when I was in my teenage years, playing the guitar in coffee houses and writing songs. And then
What genre of music was it?
just folk music,
Kevin? Folk music? Okay.
basically, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was a drummer when I was a kid, and then picked up the guitar because that was easier to go to college with, and I played in some coffee houses there, and I wrote my own songs. I was pretty strong Christian at that time, very much learning the Bible and being. I started the Fellowship of Christian Athletes on the campus, and had a really good 4-year stint at James Madison University. It's a great school, and
Nice.
then got married, started a family, and got involved with the local church, helped establish that because I have, I'm an outgoing person, so I would pull them in from the byways and the highways and helped build that church, and wrote an Easter Passion play called The Lamb of God, and that ended up playing for about 10 years. Got translated into Spanish, showed to tens of thousands of people in that area of Virginia. People travel in, and it was my mom, I think, that's one of the proudest things she ever had for me, my mom and dad, when they came down there, because it started off where we didn't even have 12 boys in our youth group to be the 12 disciples. And so we'd have to dress the girls up. And then by the end of it, we had 200 cast and crew, live animals, soldiers on horses out front. We transformed the whole church into Jerusalem. So when you walked in, you got all the stalls of all the hawkers like you would have if you were coming to Jerusalem on the Passover.
Wow.
And we'd have vignettes going on down amongst all the people that were in their chairs, and then it would just start, and some kid would run in, he's coming, and then you'd hear the shofar blow, and then Jesus would come in, and he'd get on a donkey at the back end of the church. George was his name. George knew his own music cues, and he'd ride him down the center aisle of the church. And so I've always been someone that pushed the envelope whether it was introducing
Yeah.
drums into the church back in the day, or having a donkey walk down the center aisle of the church. You
A
know,
donkey named George, no less. You
yeah,
know, that
yeah, he
reminds
was.
me of a story. I don't even know if I've ever told you this, Carl, but Kevin, you were just saying how proud your mom was that you had done this passion play. Well, I've been a voiceover artist for many years, and this was years and years ago, but almost everybody in the industry in California at that time got called in. They were doing the Bible on tape. It was an audio version of the Bible.
Uh-huh.
And I got cast, I got to do Goliath, which was fun, but I also got cast to do Jesus.
Wait, did
And my
Goliath actually
mom
have
thought that was the greatest thing in the whole world. Her son was cast to do the voice of Jesus. It was pretty funny.
did Goliath actually have speaking role?
Not a whole lot,
Yeah,
but
no.
that was a fun one.
But Jesus,
They
now Jesus's voice, now that's saying something.
Yeah, yeah.
Good,
Well, that's cool.
congratulations.
You've got that theater
So,
background and writing plays, and if I remember right, one of your first books, or at least one that you'd started a long time ago, was some of these lyrics or poetry that you
yeah,
had written. Oh, look at that. We got visuals.
you got visuals. I don't know if
The
it's
Heart of
showing
a
up.
Warrior Poet. Wow, that is a good looking book too. That very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, it's over 150 pages worth of um, work that I've done over the last 40 years, maybe 50 years. So
Is it
it
chronological like that, Kevin? Do you start with your
no,
young stuff and move up
no,
to the current?
no. I purposefully made it non chronological so that um, you can just go like this and stop, and wherever you stop, maybe that's something that you need to be have some encouragement on in your journey today.
Yeah.
Just let God, the universe, kind of direct your energy to when you stop that thing. And so there's a lot of different work in there. It's
That's
PG, so
super,
it's okay.
super cool. Well,
Um,
where can people get a copy of that
well,
book?
that one and my children's book, Ripple the Raindrop, you can get on lulu.com,
Lulu.com. All
LULU.com.
right.
Yep. And so I self-published those. This is the fourth edition of my book of poetry. It started after my sister was killed, and that took me into a deeper level of pathos. Um, we didn't know it at the time, and so during that first week when we were so traumatized and grieving over her unexpected loss, um, that I wrote at two of her funerals. She had one on the East Coast and one on the West, or out in Colorado where she lived at the time. Um, there were huge numbers of people at these two funerals for her because she was a social worker, so well loved, and just a beautiful human being. That was my older sister, Lenny. She was about a
Wow.
year and a half older than I, and she helped hold my hand through my college, and just was a big fan of her little brother.
Yeah.
Um, and so,
Yeah,
um,
that's a very sad story you shared with me, kind of what happened. I don't know if you want to talk about it now. We don't have to if you're not comfortable with it, but it's
no, I'm happy to tell you just because we did the shows on these. Let me back up. So in 1995, when she died, we thought it was an accident by her. Then, she was out on a back road in Colorado. Apparently, they got a flat tire. Her husband went to throw the bad tire in the back of the Jeep, and the Jeep fell on her. She had somehow, or for some reason, maybe to go get a lug nut, and that was the story, went under the Jeep, and the Jeep fell on her and crushed her. And she died 3 hours later on operating table. Back at that time, they didn't have cell phones. It was a deserted area, uh, pretty hard. So it took some time to get help there. And it's a whole story that has now come out. But at the time, it looked like an accident. The police said it was an accident, and it was case closed within 5 days. He quickly cremated her body against the family's wishes and went on with his life. And he kept himself um, close to our family. My daughters looked at him as Uncle Harold and grew up with him, and um, he was friends with my wife, and so they would text back and forth, and she looked at him as more like a kind of a irritating older brother kind of energy
Okay.
because he was controlling. We knew he was controlling. What we didn't know was he was a psychopath and a sociopath,
Uh,
uh, what is commonly called now a narcissist. But back then we didn't have those names, and we didn't think that. We just thought he was, controlling. But it's a big step to go from controlling to actually putting someone under a Jeep and then dropping it on them.
yeah, I would say
That's
so.
that's a kind of emotionless, disconnected psyche that we see a lot of in society, where we're recognizing more of it today. Anyway, fast forward 5 years later, he goes on a Christian dating site and he finds a gal that's got a good job. She's an ophthalmologist, and her name is Tony Bertollet, and they have a whirlwind romance. They get married. They have a child about 5 years later, a few years later. And then on their 12th anniversary, he's planned this special trip to take her up to Estes Park, Colorado, to the Stanley Hotel where they filmed The Shining. And they took a hike up Deer Mountain and got to a place and she fell off the cliff and died. Same circumstances, call late in the evening or early evening, remote location. Well, when that happened, a lot of us, our antennas went up and said, hey, it doesn't happen twice to the same guy. Mysterious deaths of his wife. And so they reopened the case in Douglas County, on my sister, and they started investigating him. And 2 years later, they arrested him, and he's now in jail for the rest of his life in Terre Haute, Indiana, um, without parole
mm.
and without any more appeals.
Well,
Wow.
that is obviously a tragic, tragic story, but her passing sounds like the blessing that came out of that was some inspiration for you.
For
Uh,
sure. Um,
Kevin, how old a lady was she?
she was early 30s.
Yeah, and the reason I ask it, I lost my sister at 38. Not a murder that now that you found out, but just a freak illness, and she passed within 3 days over Labor Day. So
Wow.
understanding that, um, loss of a sibling is powerful and traumatic, but it also she was very inspirational as well. She wasn't a social worker, but just lived her life to the fullest. The type of person that she would work 3 jobs for 6 months, save up all her money, and then travel like in a backpack for 6. I mean, just loved life, and her name was Liz. So yeah, just
I'm
very
sorry for your
sensitive.
loss.
Yeah,
yeah.
same here.
I think a parent losing a child is one of the hardest things that could happen.
Yeah,
And so I know that it broke my mom and dad.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
fortunately, they went to their graves thinking that it was an accident. They didn't. My mom had dementia the last 12 years of her life, so she was not aware of what was going on with the case, with the death of his second wife. And if, my dad was a badass, and he would have probably gone out to Colorado, gotten his affairs in order, and taken care of business if he
yeah,
had known that he
Yeah.
had killed my
Yeah.
sister. So, yes, it was right around the time of the Oklahoma bombing, and I just figured God needed a good nursery worker to help with the
yeah,
babies that were lost in that explosion.
There
yeah.
you go.
Um,
There you go.
but
Great
it's
way to
been
look
a,
at it.
if you want more
Well,
information, we've been on all the crime shows because he's considered a serial killer, and so they love those crime stories. But it's about helping women to wake up to the signs of this controlling nature, the isolation that they do. Um, and so it's on 48 Hours, American Monster. The best one we did a few years ago was with a group called Wild Crime, because his uh, his one of his big mistakes was he did it on federal land, and so they have their own kind of SBI called the CBI, and Best Shots smelled something funny, and she started that investigation. And so that's called Wild Crime on Hulu. And then
All right.
they just came out with another one on Amazon that I'm not
Hmm.
in. I'm not in the latest one, but on Amazon Prime, it's called Pushed to Death, and it's the first episode. And they let us know this past summer that they were doing another one.
Push to
Yeah, I'll
death.
put
All right.
those. I'll put all those in the links. You and I can get together offline and get some of those links, and especially for your books too. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that seems
So
to have
that's
lit
the
a
why that's
fire.
yeah, that lit a fire because I went through that first year putting myself in Harold's shoes and thinking, what would a grieving husband be feeling at the empty chair at the table at the holidays? And you've been through it. You understand that pain of loss, and I know a lot of people do. So I think it helped um, soften my heart even more, and have compassion for people when they have losses in their life. And so anyway, it's a
Yeah.
book of all my ups and downs, failures and successes, and we
And I'm
you
sure your
know
goal is to maybe help other people who are feeling certain ways and give them some
uh,
inspiration.
absolutely. I've been a life coach. I did it professionally for a while, but I've been coaching people my whole life.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well, we'll
so
have to get you with Carl offline because Carl needs some coaching. Kevin, he needs some coaching. I'm kidding. Carl's a
I'll
great
do it.
guy. I'm kidding. Well, listen, I want to talk a little bit about the children's book. When you were telling
Okay,
me about this, not only did I think it was such an interesting character, but the fact that it really teaches things as well. So it's called Ripple the Raindrop.
that's correct.
Yeah,
The,
it
the
was right
adventures of
there
the adventures of
almost.
Ripple.
There
Right
you
there.
go.
Got it. Oh, you had it. And then Carl talked. Go.
Adventures of Ripple the Raindrop. I feel like the guy in looking over the fence.
All right. Well, tell us
And, it,
about
and it,
Ripple the
well,
Raindrop
his,
and
his
the book
friends
itself.
his friends call him Rip. Okay,
Rip. Okay.
Rip, and that's a play for all the ladies out there that like watch that Western. It's called
The Yellowstone. Yeah.
Yellowstone. Yeah. Um, Basically, I wrote this when I was a kid, and the basics for the story, and over the years, um, I forgot about it, and it was like a class assignment. So it was written on lined paper, and it was about a paragraph or two long, right? And so my dad kept the story, and I found it in his records. He'd even had one of his students, because he was a professor later in life, and had one of his students try to put together um, a book out of construction paper with these drawings. And I always felt like it should be an animated series because it does follow water cycle. I've been a student of water for my whole life. It's water is much more than we think it is. It's a crystalline structure, actually, and it carries information and memory. And Dr. Emoto proved that in his icicle tests. Um, and so, water is something that no chemistry on Earth happens without it. It's um, it's just magical. Water's magical, is all I can say. The more you
Well, like you
study
said
it,
yesterday, every living thing on the planet
yeah.
has to have
You're
water.
you're 70, you're 80% water, let's say. Your body floats in a water space, and it's a frequency, and so it carries information. All frequency and energy carries information. And so water is the same water that's been on this planet the whole existence of the planet. It just recycles. We never lose it. Just goes up and down and up and down and recycles. So I thought, well, that's almost like reincarnation, where it's almost like you could have him go to any place in the planet and you can teach about the culture, the geography. You can teach earth science, the water cycle, the clouds. And so I wanted it to be educational. I wanted it to be something that I could grow into a series. And hopefully it'll be picked up and become an animated children's series on one of these big networks, because I think that's where it belongs. Rip could be a real inspiration to children, and and I wrote it a little tongue in cheek so that using plays on words. So like his father is Dawn, moisture, and his mom is Evening from the from another tribe. Let's put it that way. And when they fell in love on Camp Cumulus, which they ended up getting married by the great cloud maker in the sky, and they had a beautiful rainbow wedding. There wasn't a dry drop in the clouds. So those kind of, his sisters are Dewey. No, his sisters are Stormy and gosh, I just drew a blank.
That's okay. A lot of
Well, I know
characters there, I'm sure.
I know
you
who
said his
she is. I want to say,
you said the little brother's name was Dewey or
yeah,
Dew.
his little brother's waiting to do because naturally he wet the grass every night. April, that's it, April. So it's April, Stormy, and Dewey. I can't believe I
There you
forgot
go.
that.
Well,
Anyway,
listen,
so that's a,
there's all kinds of stuff available now to help you put together sort of I mean, we can talk about this sometime if you want to, Kevin. But there's some cool ways to get animated stuff done much easier than ever before. And I happen to know somebody in the voiceover industry that could lend some character voices to it.
that would
I've
be
done
fun.
some of that in the past, so maybe we need to talk about it. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
that'd
this
be.
book you just finished?
I finished this one mm, about 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. Um, it took, like I said, it's self-published, and I spent a lot of time working with AI to get the illustrations, um, you know, the way I wanted them. I did my own voiceover on the story, by the way,
Oh,
um,
nice.
but you can get an idea of the characters for. So that's his whole family. Here's Dewey.
There's Dewey.
Yeah, and then he goes to rain school where he learns how to be a good raindrop, but he wanted to be a puddle hopper instead, and his dad gets mad at him because he says life's more than just being a puddle hopper. And so they get into an argument, and that grew a big crowd of raindrops, which is, you're not allowed to do that. That's an unregistered crowd, according to Cloud Rule 86. And so then the cloud gave way unexpectedly, and that's his first drop to Earth. And
Ah,
he was
got it.
he was almost scared dry, and he runs into Roscoe, who couldn't handle the wind pressure, so he split. And they end up dropping into West Texas or Central Texas, uh,
Oh, look at
in the
that.
middle, in the middle of a concert out at Iron Wolf. My friends that own Iron Wolf. I had to put that in there.
Iron Wolf,
So
that's the
it's
distillers?
yeah, that's the distillery out in Spicewood.
Yeah, I met him one night at the Gramercy, and I've asked him to come on What Drives You as well. I gotta remember to reach back out to him.
Glenda and Jordan, they're good people.
Yeah, they seem
Anyway,
like it. Very nice.
so then he has other adventures along the way. He meets up with the local Native American drops, the Creek drops, and they flow in and they play, and then when they're all done, they learned in rain school how to evaporate and get back to the cloud camps in the sky. And just when he's ready to do that himself, just when he's floated up to the top of the pond that they're in, and getting ready to. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, there it is. So he's dreaming about his mom and his dad and he's starting to get a little homesick. And just when his attention is up in the clouds, something happens. Can you guess what?
He falls in
Big
love.
a big corgi
Oh.
dog comes and licks him up. And so he ends up falling, sloshing around in the stomach, falling asleep, and then he doesn't know what to make of this last leg of his journey. He ends up next to a fire hydrant with an apple tree.
Yeah, I got
And
you. Like you
then
said, it's all full circle, right?
yeah, and then then he soaks into the ground and he meets the weed roots. They're very politically active, they're very busybodies. And then anyway, he makes different roots friends. And then when he gets up there to the top, he might fall in love with a little chlorophyll droplet.
There you
And
go.
Oh,
Got to have love in the story. That's really
gotta
cool,
have love.
man. I'm just impressed with, I mean, I've got creative projects and sometimes I get started and I don't complete them like I should. And so I'm just impressed that you were able to have something that has been, part of your life now, really for a long time, and you got
I
around
finally
to
completed it. It
finally
was a
got it
big.
completed. That's pretty cool.
well, it's interesting to me too, Kevin, that it's so timely with the global warming or whatever you want to call it, climate change, the tribes and the rebirth into you can do so many things. I mean, this could be a 10, 20-year cartoon animated series because of all the different variations that it can take from an educational, encouragement, entertainment perspective, which is kind of
Environmental.
what we believe on this channel that we're set out to do is do those three, we call them our three pillars, the three E's. But man, that's exciting, and I hope it just takes off. Really, that would be just amazing. Very positive.
Environmental issues are definitely something
Oh,
we could talk about. We could talk
yep,
about chemtrails. We could talk about controversial stuff
everything.
too.
Yeah.
You name
Hey,
it.
Kevin, is there a website or anything like that where people can find out more about you and your books? Where's a good place to send
Coming
people?
soon. I'm actually have an appointment tomorrow with the gal that's helping me. I did take the URL Ripple the Raindrop, but I'm going to probably be directing it to an overall site. So I'm just going to have my Kevin Rishell Enterprises or something like that, and then I'll have
Cool.
all three of my books. Because I'm very excited about my last one that just I just finished in the last month, and just in time for the book signing we did on the 11th of December. We
And
got
it's a
the
different
copies.
book than what we've talked about? Oh, there's another one.
I
The
don't know if you
Oh,
path.
can.
that's right. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Go ahead and tell Carl a little bit about that.
The Path of a Destinarian. I had a dream about 10, 15 years ago that stuck with me, and it was about an ancient race of people that knew how to create their destiny. And they were called destinarians. And so, as a life coach and as a student of personal growth and development and professional, I've studied the mind and how it works and how manifestation, we are our own creators and we are our own limit. We limit ourselves. Nobody else limits us but us. And so, learning how to let go of limiting beliefs and resonate so that you are energetically resonating with what it is you want to create is what the book's about. So it's an allegorical story like The Alchemist, where the hero in the story or the young man, his girlfriend breaks up with him and says, I can't be with you unless you go figure out who you are, what you want. So he leaves the town of life, Lyffe, and he crosses the bridge of awareness, which is the first step towards any kind of healing, transformation, or growth, is you have to have awareness. And so he starts figuring out what doesn't serve him anymore as he crosses the bridge of awareness about all the old stories and pigeonholes that people put him in, and the safety and the comfort and the limiting beliefs, and starts to shed those, starts to let that go. And then he goes to the road of imagination, which is the first road. Well, first he meets a wizard on the other side of the bridge, who introduces him to some concepts about water. And then he goes on the road of imagination, which is where you get clear on what you want. The universe can't bring you what you want if you're not clear about your goals and your dreams and your imagination. And so, the road of imagination it's a magical road. Streams bubble up out of nowhere. Um, and it's a happy space. And what do you think comes after the road of imagination on these roads to destiny? That's
Carl, guess?
when
I don't
you
know.
when you have an idea, when you have a dream, what happens next?
We
Well,
have
it's
to take action on it
action.
before anything
Yeah.
There you
happens.
go. You got it. Take inspired action. So your beingness, what would your beingness be on the road of on the bridge? You'd be an Awarian. What would your beingness be on the road of imagination? You'd be an Imaginarian. And then you're going to be an Actarian, and you're going to take inspired action on the road of perseverance, and it will test you. And it's an uphill battle many times to get your dream across the finish line, and it will beat you up. Um,
Mm,
and
interesting.
so, the end of that journey, which probably never really ends, because you'll always have new dreams and new roads of perseverance to go down, but comes wisdom. You get wisdom when you have done the work and you have paid your prices and you have been in that arena with your face marred with sweat, blood, and tears, and you know the great enthusiasms and the great devotions, and you spent yourself in a worthy cause. And at best, you know the thrill of high achievement. And then at worst, if you fail, well, at least you'll never fail with those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat. And
Yeah.
so that road of perseverance brings you to wisdom, and then wisdom takes you to mastery. And so there's some fun. Chapter 5 is my favorite. Um,
Look at that. Kevin, had no idea that you were writing all these books like that. That is so cool. And is that one available for people yet?
yeah, you can get that one on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I actually used a real printer for this one,
Mm.
publisher, because I wanted to have a wider audience. Um, and so, yeah, you can find it anywhere on Amazon or Book World.
Well,
Cool.
cool. We'll
I'm
make sure
having
we
a
put some
translate.
things up on here too so people will know where to go for these things. But Kevin, appreciate you taking your time with us today. We like to kind of finish up our shows. We've got a couple things that we like to do with our guests. So we're going to give you the rapid fire questions if you're ready. We started off since Carl and I were both in the automotive industry. It's kind of how we started with this. But we ask every guest, what was your very first car?
Well, the one that I own was a red, cherry red Toyota Celica hatchback with those grills, those black
Yeah,
grills
on
coming
the
out the
back window.
back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice.
And then
Okay, what has been your favorite vehicle that you've ever had?
mm, I would say I had an S-Class Jaguar. I like the look of that.
Nice.
And now I'm driving a BMW 530i, and it's kind of my new favorite. It's a
All right.
beautiful, beautiful sedan. I call her Angel.
I love it. All right, and the last question in this would be, money's no object. What is your dream vehicle?
Well, I'm not a big vehicle guy, but I've sat in a few Maybachs, and I think they're pretty nice cars.
Right on. Right on.
What
Well,
what is
thank you
But
for
yours?
that.
What is yours?
My dream vehicle?
Yeah,
It's changed. Carl and I had a person on the show not too long ago who's really just sort of an expert in the history of transportation and is very involved in flying vehicles now, very up to date on flying vehicles. And there's no question, well, they're not coming, they're here. They're
yeah.
not really consumer ready just yet, but yeah, I'm ready to take to
Take to
miss
the
all the
skies.
traffic lights and get up to the skies a little bit. Why not?
yeah, his
That's
name, Kevin, he just wrote a book called Dude, Where's My Flying Car? And it just was published last year. And his name's Tim Jackson. Really interesting one episode if you want to watch it. It was a couple months ago. But yeah, that flying car stuff is here. It's really here.
Well,
oh,
Carl, why
I
don't you
can
take over and ask Kevin our other question of our
Yeah,
show?
Kevin, you inspired me greatly. Again, thank you for being on the program. But what inspired me most about your story and your journey is besides the tragic stuff and that you've survived that whole loss is the fact that you had a story as a kid that you've now turned into whatever, 4, 5, 6 decades later and completed and have a tangible thing that people can go out and buy. That's amazing. But I love that you talked about this last book because our last question that we wrap everything up is called our words of wisdom, our wow question. So on your paths and your roads and your journey in your book, you talk about wisdom being right before mastery. So what would you tell young Kevin, 18-year-old Kevin that you know now that you wish you had known then so that we can share that with our audience and people who are out there on the web.
Little background to this before I give you this
Sure. Sure.
I think that as I said, and it's in the book, we are our own limiting. You know, we are the only limiting factor in our life. So what is the most unhealthy thing that you could do is to not love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you're not going to think you're worthy or deserving of being able to do anything, have anything, love anyone, have anything. It all gets back to, and I've coached enough people to know that men and women both, um, is unworthiness. The two things are trust and unlove. We struggle with trusting and they struggle with love, self-love. And so that in mind, I would say love yourself and go out and spread your sparkle.
Hmm.
I like it. That's great.
Good one.
Kevin, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate it. I'm sure I'll run into you out and about sometime soon. Carl, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you,
Pleasure to meet you,
everyone, for
Carl.
joining us on this edition of What Drives You. And remember, be good humans.